My dear readers, listeners, and of course friends, one must begin, as any honest examination of reality does, by recognizing the brutal, unvarnished truth. Deep Space Nine, after Season 1, is nothing but the fevered hallucinations of one man. A man who, having murdered everyone aboard the station, is left alone to drift in a nightmarish cycle of guilt, canaille, and madness. That man, that tragic figure, is Elim Garak. No, this is not a clever what-if or some tiresome fan speculation. This is the truth of DS9. Every moment of heroism, of moral quandary, of grand political intrigue from Season 2 onward is the product of a broken mind desperately clinging to a reality it no longer inhabits. Garak killed them all swiftly, efficiently, exactly as a former agent of the Obsidian Order would, and now exists alone in a vast dead station. The other characters, the events you've watched, the grand cosmic struggles, are no more than ghosts, spectral echoes conjured by a mind too brilliant to accept its own solitude, and too fractured to escape the consequences of its actions. Let us consider the scene of this unimaginable crime. The once bustling halls of DS9 are empty, a tomb floating in the cold, uncaring depths of space. The promenade, once a vibrant meeting ground for a multitude of species, is now silent, save for Garak's own footsteps as he staggers between the replicator and his bottle of cana. The Cardassian liquor, thick as blood and almost as black, is his only companion now, his only real companion. He drinks, gulps even, with the desperation of a man who knows that there is no one left to see him, no one left to judge him. Every bottle is a step further into the abyss. And what of the others? What of Odo, Kira, Bashir and Sisko? Gone, all of them. Gone, not in some grand war or noble sacrifice, but at the hands of Garak's precise, remorseless execution. Odo, the shapeshifter who once represented the moral heart of the station, is perhaps the most pitiful of all. His gelatinous remains sit rotting in a bucket, hidden away in the dark recesses of what used to be his office, a place where order once reigned and law held sway. Now it's a stinking charnel house, a macabre reminder of Garak's final betrayal of even the concept of justice. Odo's old office, once the locus of his rigid sense of morality and law, has become the most revolting symbol of Garak's derangement. Daily, as if in some perverse ritual of self-abasement, Garak stumbles in there, sometimes drunk, sometimes hungover, and relieves himself in the corner, a grotesque parody of his former colleague's meticulous cleanliness. The sludge of Odo's decomposing form continues to rot in the bucket, a foul, festering remnant that Garak refuses to dispose of. Why? Because to rid himself of it would be to acknowledge that Odo is truly dead, that Garak has not only killed a man, but has obliterated order itself. And Garak cannot allow himself to confront that truth. No, he prefers the stench of decay, the constant reminder of his own atrocities because it keeps the illusion alive. As long as that bucket rots, as long as he continues his degrading visits, the phantoms in his mind can persist. One must marvel, though, at the intricacy of Garak's madness. For this is no simple delusion, it is a world-building exercise, a solipsistic creation in which he resurrects his victims, crafting elaborate narratives to distract from the reality of his isolation. In this illusory universe, his universe, Sisko still commands the station with that same self-righteous bravado. Bashir continues his flirtations with naive idealism, and Kira rages against the dying embers of Bajoran independence. But none of it is real. None of it was ever real after Garak's coup de grace at the end of Season 1. These figures are not people. They are projections, figments constructed by a mind too brilliant to simply descend into catatonia and too tortured to accept its own monstrous solitude. The genius of Garak's delusion is in the way it mirrors the show's themes of intrigue and deception, expanding upon them in the most horrifyingly personal way. The Dominion War, the complex layers of political machination, it's all too perfectly suited to Garak's unique appetites. What better way to distract himself from the blood on his hands than to weave an intricate web of geopolitical chess, to invent foes like the Founders, adversaries against whom he can wage imaginary wars of deception. In Garak's world, the conflict never ends, the game never stops, because to stop would be to face the truth, that there is no one left to play with, no one to deceive, no one to betray, because Garak has already won. And the spoils of that victory are a station filled with nothing but corpses and canaille. Perhaps the most tragic of all is Garak's relationship with Julian Bashir, the good doctor who, in reality, was almost certainly among the first to fall. You see, in Garak's fantasy, Bashir becomes a projection of the innocence Garak wishes he could still believe in. Their so-called friendship, such as it is, becomes one of the most telling aspects of Garak's unravelling. In the delusion, Bashir remains optimistic, naive, and unfathomably trusting, exactly as Garak needs him to be. The truth, however, is far darker. The real Bashir was murdered quickly, perhaps even mercifully, and Garak now clings to the idealized image of him as a means of holding on to the last vestige of his own humanity. But even that is slipping away, dissolving into the abyss, much like Odo's rotting form in the corner. The station itself, once a symbol of Federation order and cooperation, now decays alongside its lone inhabitant. Systems break down, lights flicker, and entire sections fall into disrepair. Garak no longer cares for the upkeep. His mind is too far gone, too consumed by the endless cycles of imaginary drama. In his hallucination, the station remains pristine, a shining beacon of order amid chaos. But in reality, it's little more than a tomb. A tomb filled with the echoes of lives Garak snuffed out in a moment of cold calculation, now populated by the shadows of his own invention. And what of the rest of the galaxy? The grand conflicts with the Dominion, the delicate dance of alliances, the shifting political tides, all of this too is Garak's construction. In his universe, the stakes are always high, the tension ever present, because his mind cannot bear the quiet. The silence of the empty station would drive him mad, if he weren't already far beyond madness. So instead he conjures conflict, endless war and intrigue, because it is all he knows. But in the end, these are just paper tigers, enemies with no real substance, much like the friends and colleagues he imagines by his side. Garak is alone, truly, irrevocably alone, and no amount of Kanar or fantasy can change that. What we are left with then is not a story of triumph or redemption, not a tale of comrades united against the darkness of the universe, but the solitary nightmare of a man who cannot escape the darkness of his own soul. Garak, the master of deception, has deceived even himself, constructing a vast, intricate web of lies to hide from the truth that haunts him, that he is a murderer, a solitary monster, pacing the halls of an empty station, drowning in Kanar, and haunted by the ghosts of those he destroyed. And so every episode you've watched since the end of Season 1 has been a lie, not just to you, the viewer, but to Garak himself. There are no heroes, no victories, no moral lessons to be learned. There is only a single man lost in his own hell, relieving himself in the corner of Odo's old office while the sludge of his former friend rots in a bucket nearby. A fitting monument, if ever there was one, to the ultimate futility of deception and the inescapable horror of a life built on lies.